Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you something many pool players really never learn. How to aim correctly when the cue ball is throwing the object ball offline. And don't worry, this is not going to be some long, painful physics lecture. I'm just going to show you a simple way to see what's happening, with just enough real math to impress your friends. What this tool does. This program shows you both visually and mathematically exactly how much the cue ball throws the object ball offline. It does that based on four things. The cut angle, and you can vary the cut angle from -90 to +90 degrees. You can get it close to the pocket, and you can press snap to the closest pocket and it will show you the cut angle that you need to do from cue ball to object ball to pocket. It shows you where you have to aim on the red line to make the object ball go along the white line to the pocket. If you want to see a close-up of this, you can zoom to the pocket and it'll show you what this will look like as a close-up, and you can put it back. So this tool will show you how much you have to aim to correct for throw, for cut angle, but also for spin on the cue ball. And you can move the spin around to the spin you want, and you can see the red line moving back and forth depending on the spin you're putting on the ball, where you have to aim. Also, you can vary by cue ball speed, from a medium speed to a soft speed to full speed. The definition of speed is a soft shot would go from the cue ball to the end rail and back to the head string. A medium shot, you would hit 2 rails and go back to the middle, and a fast shot would go 3 rails and back to the foot string. So this would be a slow speed, this would be a medium speed, this would be a fast speed. You can also vary by the friction. If you find your throw is different on your table because maybe you have brand new balls and the throw isn't very much, or maybe you have old balls and they have a lot of grit on the ball or wear on the ball, you can actually change the friction to override what you have. So if you have, say, a lot of friction, you can change to a lot of friction, or say you have almost no friction, you can change it to less. This diagram here shows you the aim spot, or the overlap you would see when you shoot this shot. So say you had a different angle. As you change the angle, your aim spot and your view would change. Also, you'll find when, say, you change your spin on the cue ball, you'll find that this diagram will change as well to where you should aim. In the description below, you'll find the V72 file. You'll need to download it, put it on a jump drive or in your downloads. To get it to play, you right-click the document, and then you will be able to open it with Google Chrome. Once you open it in Google Chrome, you can press F11 to go to full screen, or F11 to go to the original view. You can press Control and scroll to make the view larger or smaller. You can press cut angle controls to give you your controls. You can press throw compensation to give you your controls for throw compensation, and you can open up your ball overlap view. This is the mathematics behind the program. I feel what people really need is a visual representation of the mathematics. So the first thing you can learn from this app is about cut, induce, throw. When a cue ball passes by an object ball with no side spin, this could be with top spin or stun or draw, as long as there's no side spin. When the cue ball touches the object ball, it creates friction here that pulls the object ball in the direction of the cue ball. So rather than the object ball going in the line of centers, which you think it mathematically would, it is actually thrown off course by the friction that's here. So this is called cut, induce, throw. So what you can learn from this app is that the angle of throw is always the same. So we're going to discuss what that looks like when the object ball gets further away from the pocket. We're going to discuss what the angle of cut does to the amount of throw. We're going to discuss what the speed effects are to the amount of throw, and what the effects are when the cue ball is closest to stun, and the effects of throw. So let's first discuss what happens with an object ball as its distance to the pocket. So let's say we set up for an approximate 30-degree angle, and we look at the amount of throw. So we're only a few inches off the center. If we go out to a longer distance, and we're still at about 30 degrees, you can see that this is farther away from the pocket, but the angle was the same. So let's now look at the effect of a rolling cue ball on the angle of cut. So a rolling cue ball will have a vertical spin of 100. This is 25, 50, 75, 100. So if we have a rolling cue ball, effectively, this is where you'd hit on the cue ball to get a rolling cue ball. So if we set this up to be a straight on shot, we can see that there's very little throw. And as you increase the angle, the throw will increase. So as we increase the angle this way, we can see that we have to compensate more for the angle of throw as the angle increases on both sides. Now let's take an angled shot, say something about 30 degrees. As the speed increases, the amount you compensate will be less. So if the speed goes fast to fast speed, there's almost no compensation for a fast speed. At a medium speed, there's minimum compensation, but as you get down to a slower speed, the compensation increases. As that angle increases, at a slow speed, this amount of throw compensation will increase. But if you increase the speed, you decrease that amount of compensation needed. Now here's the interesting one. Say we go to stun, which means we're going to be down at 0 here. As you increase the angle to about 30 degrees or so, the amount you have to compensate increases. But in stun, as you increase the angle, the amount of compensation is actually less. You can see the highest point at medium speed is in about here. At fast speed, you'll find in stun, it's about half of that. The maximum throw is in about 15 degrees territory. But you'll find at slow speed, the maximum throw, the maximum compensation is at about 30 degrees. There's actually quite a bit of compensation at slow speed for a stun. But as you increase the angle, even on a slow speed, that compensation gets less, but not by very much. If you are using a pivot style system for applying spin, this means that you're aiming the cue ball at the ghost ball and you're pivoting the tip in such a way that the cue ball exactly replaces the ghost ball at that distance and speed and spin. There is a thing called gearing English. There is an amount of spin that you can put on the cue ball, so when the cue ball touches the object ball, the spin is exactly opposite to the amount of friction as the cue ball goes by, and the object ball will travel along the exact line of centers, and the object ball will travel end over end. There will be no side spin on this object ball as it travels exactly along that line. There is a way to calculate gearing English. If you take a line through the center of aim of the object ball through where the ghost ball would be, if your Q-tip can contact 40% of the difference between these two lines, this will create gearing English. Visibly, to have the Q-tip contact 40% of the difference of these two distances, because of the arc of the Q-tip and the arc of the cue ball, effectively, if you aim exactly at the center of these two, your Q-tip will be contacting this at 40%, and that will be gearing English. Basically, if you take the difference of these two and your Q-tip in your mind centers exactly over the half of that distance, that will create gearing English. So say we look at the app to look at gearing English. So let's take a shot into the corner pocket. And let's take any shot at all. Say we'll get something around 30 degrees territory, just for fun. Close enough. Now we can see that if we have stun, that we would have to aim over here to have the ball go in the pocket. But if we put a certain amount of spin on this ball, so this red line goes straight over the white line, that will be gearing English. So if we just play with this and go outside a little bit till that red line crosses, we get that for a spot. Now, so this is gearing English. So it doesn't matter whether I go slow, I still aim at the pocket, or I go medium speed, I still aim at the pocket. If I go fast speed, I still aim at the pocket. I can be in stun with, say, 0 vertical spin, press 0, enter. I am still at the pocket, but say I was in full draw, 100%, sorry, negative 100, enter. So I'm in full draw, but I'm still one tip outside. I'm still aiming at the pocket. If I'm at stun, press 0, enter. If I'm in stun, I'm still aiming at the pocket. If I'm in 100% top spin, I'm still aiming at the pocket. So it doesn't matter as long as the Q-tip is one tip outside anywhere up in here, I'm always aiming at the pocket. If we increase the angle, of course the side spin will have to increase. So now we'll be almost 2 tips outside for this amount, but anywhere top and bottom spin, say I was in forward roll, I would still aim straight at the pocket, and the same was if I was in full draw, I would still aim at the pocket. And it doesn't matter the amount of friction either. The friction could be huge or small. I'm still always aiming at the pocket. So here's why the concept of gearing English is so important. If you're putting gearing English on the ball, the object ball will go directly along the line of centers. You can aim directly at the pocket. But if you put more than gearing English, the spin will be more. It'll throw the ball more in this direction. So if you put more than gearing English, you have to compensate by aiming to the same side as the gearing English. If you hit less than gearing English, the throw will be on the other side. So if you hit less than gearing English, you will have to compensate by aiming to the left side of gearing English. Effectively, on a 30-degree cut, you can put 20% outside English and have to aim left of the pocket, even though you're putting right English on because you're not past gearing English yet. That's of course all pertaining to this example. You have a 30-degree cut to the left, so your gearing English is 35-40% to the right. So this is where you play around with the app to see certain things. So let's get back to an approximate, say 30-degree angle, and we'll do this at a slow speed because it shows up more. We'll do this with no manual friction override. We'll start with a no side spin and a rolling cue ball. 100, enter. So this is the amount of throw compensation we need for that shot. If we go to, say, gearing English, say we even sometimes this control won't work. So what we'll do here is put a side spin of the wrong way. We'll put a side spin of negative 35. That gives me gearing English. We'll put a vertical spin of 90. Sometimes this allows you to catch this one a little bit better. So now we can go on this one, and we know that if we put 1 tip of outside English, we'll try 80, enter. We know that if we put 1 tip of outside English, no matter where we are, we can aim at the pocket. But say we put only half a tip of outside English, we're still going to aim to the right of the pocket because we're not over gearing English yet. You'll also notice that if we put inside English on the ball and say we're at a medium speed, If your shot is a little bit off and you plan to put 25% English or 75% English, if you look at the red line, you'll notice it's relatively flat in this area. So putting inside English is actually very forgiving. You'll also notice that it is friction that controls the amount of throw. So you'll find as you put more and more and more throw to the inside, you actually don't have to compensate as much because the higher the spin, the less the friction, therefore the less the throw. So there's many things you can learn by playing with the program, but rather than having a mathematical formula that you have to figure things out, you're actually able to visibly see what's going on and get a feel. So with this, you can set up your balls, set up your speed. The calculations are done with the cue ball at contact to the object ball. So if you put bottom spin on the cue ball and you're 5 diamonds away, and by the time it gets to the object ball it's in forward roll, you have to calculate the throw with forward roll. If you start training your eyes with this, you stop guessing, start understanding what's really happening on every shot. You'll see why a little inside English makes a ball overcut, undercut. You'll also see why soft shots that should go in sometimes hang, and why firing a shot in hard often seems to ignore the throw completely. This tool takes all of that mystery, turns it into a clear picture, even backs it up with real physics and real equations. If you like this kind of training, please smash the subscribe and like button. It helps our algorithm. We'd appreciate that very much. Thank you.